So this is a platinum sample pan that we'll be using for the instrument. We'll put our sample in here, and it will get loaded onto the instrument using a mechanical arm. One thing I want to point out is the bottom of this pan. Notice that it has a ridge line of platinum metal, basically the handle of the pan. This is going to go in a groove on the sample loading arm on the instrument itself. So we need to be aware of where this line is and how to load the pan on correctly. Now, this pan hasn't yet been cleaned, but once we clean it, you don't want to be touching it. Your fingers can add oils to the pan, which will affect the mass and will affect the measurement. As those oils burn off in the instrument, you'll see a change in mass. So we're going to be really careful to only use tweezers, forceps when we're handling this sample pan. Before we use our platinum pan in an experiment, we need to make sure that it's clean. So what we're going to do is clean it off in some concentrated hydrochloric acid. We only need a small amount, and this can be used multiple times. So if you're going to be running multiple samples, keep this throughout the duration of the experiment. You can wash your pan in between. So I've put about 10 milliliters of concentrated hydrochloric acid in the beaker. Please keep the hydrochloric acid in the hood for your safety. It does off gas quite a bit. And then place your pan in the hydrochloric acid. You may see some bubbling. You may not. It just depends on how dirty the pan is. So I'm just going to let that soak for a few minutes. Please only use the spatulas when you're manipulating the platinum pan in the hydrochloric acid. These are chemical resistant. Things like the forceps are not, and so they can become damaged easily. Sometimes you'll find that there's something stuck on the platinum pan. And if that's the case, what you can do is very carefully take the pan out, put it on a watch glass, and gently, very gently scrape the pan. It's going to take a little bit of manipulation, but just some gentle scraping. I'm not pushing hard at all. These platinum pans can be damaged relatively easily, and they're very expensive. So a little bit of scraping, maybe, but definitely some soaking in the hydrochloric acid should take care of anything on the sample pan that you don't want to be there. So I'm going to rinse this with some water. I have a waste beaker here for water, so I'm just going to put that in here. Because this has come in contact with the acid, I'm going to put this into the acid waste container that is also located in the hood. It's a bucket with a pink label on it. Okay, so let's remove the platinum pan from the acid in the beaker. I'm just going to carefully put the pan on the spatula. Be very careful not to deform the handle on that pan. It's also very easy to do. And so I'm going to rinse this pan with water. Again, being careful not to touch it. Lots of water. Now that that's rinsed, I'm going to place it here on my watch glass. Rinse off my spatulas. Okay. So it's probably a good idea to get a clean, dry watch glass at this point. So the next thing we're going to do is rinse off the platinum pan with some acetone. I really only need one of these. Okay. So we're going to rinse off with acetone. And basically this just aids in drying. Notice that I'm collecting the acetone in a separate container. This is going to go in the proper organic waste container. All right. Now our sample pan is clean, but we need to make sure it's very dry before we use it for a sample. And so what we're going to do next is place the sample pan in an oven. So this is the oven that we're going to use for drying our sample pan. It's located right next to the hood that you've just cleaned your pan in. So to open the oven, you actually have to put your hand at the bottom of the oven and give it a good yank. All right, and so here's the oven. You can see there's actually a sample pan in here that's currently drying. So I'm going to take my watch glass with my clean pan and just place it in the oven. The oven is right now set at about 100 degrees Celsius. The temperature matters less than making sure simply that your pan is dry. So if someone has an experiment going on where they need an oven at a certain temperature, go ahead and use the oven. Don't adjust the temperature. So we'll let the sample pan dry in the oven.